Listen to that. What, are you taking it to the bridge now?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Top. Yeah, dude. C. D over C. Just over and over. F6. A flat major 7. C over D. A flat over B flat.
A flat over... Whatever.
How'd you learn all that? Hey, Dan.
You heard a few good minutes, and then there were a couple clinkers,
no,
but it's all real, right?
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Hey, man, the last time, well, you called and said, you know, it'd be great if we could catch up, because it's been a long time since we made a video.
Yeah.
Episode 200. That was a long time ago. I'm up to 4 something now. 400 and some videos.
I became semi-famous after I did your video. Seriously, I had more comments. Yeah, that was good. That was good.
So here's what I've noticed. I think it's fantastic. I mentioned it in one of my silly videos this morning. I said, you know, him and I have walked a similar path. I'm on a much smaller scale. You were so busy working, helping everybody else sound great for so long that you sort of, you know, just drifted away from your own artistry and your own playing. And I feel like now you're back and you're making your own record, and it's amazing. And you've been actually making a few videos with people on the internet, you know, like sort of breaking anonymity. The same thing I had.
Yeah.
What prompted this, man? What was like? Did you just like one day you're just like, fuck it, man, I'm just gonna make a record. What happened?
It wasn't overnight. The slow-moving ship, right? The Titanic, or the iceberg that's underneath the water, right?
Yes.
I'll jump to the tip in a minute, but I could have probably said that better. But we'll just keep going with that, right? There we go. That's a good one. Don't let that fly. That's a good one. That's just a really good one.
Yeah.
You know what it is? I dreamt of being a session guitar player.
Yeah.
Early teenage years. And through a series of events, I got to live my dream.
Yes.
On the West Coast, with Nashville boy moving out west, and it moved rather rapidly, and it was wonderful. It's everything I thought that I wanted to be. So those are young.
How old were you when you moved from Nashville out to the West Coast? When you started all that?
I think I just turned 22.
Damn.
So, and it happened, it just went rapidly. And again, there are a lot of things that, you have to put in the time, you have to be good. That's bottom line, right? So, but then after that, there's a lot of stuff that happens. Anyway, fast forward, there's about 20 years of that.
Yeah.
Got a little bored at the end, did a rock band, failed, led me back to Nashville.
Yeah, fail.
And then, then I played sessions in Nashville. I learned something new, which was country music. And I learned it on the terms that were at least recognizable to me because it was becoming more rock.
Yeah.
The last 30 years, this is getting to the tip.
The tip, jump to the tip.
It's 30 years of doing something I never thought I'd do, which is be a record producer.
Yeah.
So 2 decades, almost 3 decades of that, I lost myself as a guitar player. I'd work with you on records, and
you always used to say, I don't even play guitar anymore. You'd say that.
Well, I mean, I always played, but it wasn't in the same sense.
Yeah.
It was always a default, and I could go a month without picking up a guitar.
Because you were so busy editing, producing records.
All that stuff. And all of it had its, whatever, this is my trajectory, my life.
Yeah.
But anyway, so now we get to the tip of the iceberg, and it was a conversation with you.
No way.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, I still, and especially now, this point in my life, I mean, I passed 60, let's say 4 years ago.
Let's do the math on that.
Yeah, you can figure it out. No, I was born in 1960. So it makes it easy, but you start thinking about life on different terms, You were very, let's say, effusive in your challenge to just do something.
I'm going to look that up. What does that mean? Effusive.
You were latched onto this idea because it meant something to you because you had done it.
Yeah.
And I remember listening to your record. I remember taking your record. I do have a CD player in the house, but I had to find one that
you're the guy. That
yeah.
Still has one. Yeah.
And I went out to my back porch one night, and I probably had 2 or 3 glasses of nice red wine.
Euphoric buzz.
Yeah. And this was both on your Plexi Soul record, and then it was on the thing you and Guthrie did.
Yeah.
I sat back there listening to it, and it sparked something in me. I thought, it wasn't like when you're a kid, you go, I can do that. Right. It wasn't that. It was just, it was like, I need to do something like that. But it took me another 5 months to get up the courage to write a song.
Yeah.
And then it started from that.
So in all those years, what was the furthest? I know my answer. I want to know yours. In all those years, what was the furthest you ever drift away from the guitar? Like, at what point of your life were you just you were so far away from the guitar?
Well, when it starts, when your hands don't, when your hands don't feel like your hands.
Oh, I know. Man.
Like, I mean, I used to, when I was young, I was known for, having, I had some good chops, right?
Indeed.
Not by, you're talking about, not by today's standards, but and it's like, but you had that muscle memory. I was playing 8 to 10 hours a day.
Yeah.
So your hands always feel like your hands. Yeah. Well, as you age, spoiler alert for any of your, if you're younger, it does happen. Gravity catches up. So your hands start, you get a little colder every once in a while. But it's truly, my hands did not feel like my hands. Like when I pick up a guitar, and I remember there were some sessions I'd do it, and I'd pick up a guitar and play something for like you or some other guitar players, and I felt really self-conscious because when I played it was like,
you feel like real rusty. I know, man. I know.
And I remember when I was a kid, I won't mention the players. because it's irrelevant because we all will go through this, right? But I remember being a young player, and there was a great guitar player who I really admired when I was coming up through the ranks, and he had become a record producer.
Okay.
And we were playing a session together.
Okay.
And I just remember feeling that I felt like, oh, and that when you hear the word awe, that it's like a pity, and I realized I had attained that level of awe.
You felt like he wasn't playing anymore, like that.
Well, he wasn't, because he was doing another job.
Yeah, doing another job.
And so you gotta pick these things up and play them.
That's it. Your hands just get cold.
But mine at this point in my life. It was a. I wish we'd have filmed our talk in the kitchen. I'm a parent, and my kids are all adults. And they're having kids of their own, and maybe there's a little legacy. Not that what they call me Papa, but what Papa has done, like this type of shit. But it was here's a great part of who I am, and I'd like them to just have a sliver of that.
Totally.
Even if they don't like the music, it doesn't matter.
Totally. It's like we were saying in the kitchen. We were catching up a little bit. And I said, you and I both sort of had that same thing. We were helping everybody else sound good for a long time.
Yeah.
Putting our fingerprint on it, but it wasn't our music. And your production stamp is a great sound. You can apply that sound to any project you're working on.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I've worked with you so much that I can hear some record and I go, oh, Dan probably did that. It's like there's certain things like your style is definitely there. And I was thinking on the way over here, man. This might be a little deep for the homeschooler crowd or the Brett Papa crowd, but I've worked with a lot of amazing people. I know you've worked with even more amazing people. You know that thing, like when you're working with somebody who's really brilliant and they listen to a piece of music and you could just see their brain going, like the wheels turn, man. Like you wonder, like, what are they hearing? What are they listening to? Like I look around, I always just think that about you. We'd be working on sessions and we'd listen to something. I'm like, I wonder what he's
Really? You would wonder?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and like...
What if if chances are that I was thinking about something totally different?
No. But like when you go into like real producer mode and you're really zoned in, your brain is like a computer. It's just, I have the same thing. I listen to something, I listen to a record, and it's almost like a mathematical computation is taking place. You are so zoned in. You, like... What are some things when you listen to records that you didn't make, that other people have made, and you hear stuff, and like, what are some of the things that you notice that just don't make it? Like, what is a common mistake that people make when they're making records? Like production, the style, what is
in my estimation, right?
That's what
this is subjective. This is not
totally, everyone's got a different, but I want to know what you think. I've always wondered that about you.
First of all, I don't listen critically to anybody else, really.
Yeah.
Because you just accept what is coming at you. It's like a conversation, right?
Yes.
If I'm sitting there thinking about what I'm going to say to somebody, I'm already critiquing it in my mind, right?
Right.
So first of all, when I hear other people's stuff, no matter what it is, it always sounds better to me than anything I'm doing.
Right.
Because I wasn't in the process. It's just like I take it at face value.
Yeah.
But maybe I could rephrase the question in a sense of what matters to me.
Yes.
Like when I try to make it,
yes,
there is a I would call it harmonious. Mathematics. It's in Bach. It's in everything. There's a mathematical quality to beauty. Arrangement, composition are the first things that I run to, and within composition there are dynamics, there's shapes, there's always a forefront. There's what is doing the main part of the communicating, but I don't like a static background. Like I would, like I like when there's something in the forefront that you can digest. It took me years, and well, shoot, I'm still learning how to do it. But to have a background that's subtly engaging, to where if you fall off the main part of the conversation, you can be caught by something, but not dominated by like just licks, notes, and all this kind of stuff. It has to have, there is an internal kind of clock that maybe you would call it, well, you're an arranger too, so you know exactly, that's why we work together, and I think very effectively, because We both play guitar, but we're not, the world isn't just the guitar, it's the relationship, right? So everything is relationships. There's no such thing as a great sound when it's paired with something else, because it has to be relative to that. So I'm listening to relationships.
Yes.
If it's a singer's voice, if it's an instrument that's playing, just all that kind of stuff. And it sounds a little bit esoteric, but I feel like that's what captivates me.
Yes.
And that's what I gravitate towards. This is a great tool for that.
Right. Okay. This is why I came here. This is why I came here.
Okay.
You just made my whole day with what you're saying. Go deeper into okay, I've noticed that a lot of modern country pop records, anytime there's a hole, something comical jumps up in that hole and says, here, I'm the part now. You know, no one focuses on that background part. That's what makes your record sound unique. Can you go a little more into detail? See, you're not just worrying about a hook being in the hole.
Yeah.
You want the context behind the hook.
Well, the composition. Yeah, yes. I mean, it's like orchestra. I was saying, I grew up in a house. My mother was a classical pianist and wonderful. She ended up not performing, but her repertoire, her sight reading, her touch, everything about it. So I always heard that. My dad was
a good taste.
And it was the economy. Even when she was playing in like some of the most, it looked like fly shit to me.
Right.
It's like I could never read like that. But my father was I never called him father, by the way. It was dad. My dad was an orchestrator.
Yeah.
And so there was an intent to when something was played. And, you know, I mean, most of the time I haven't come up to that, but when I'm on my best game, you kind of, you hit that mark where when it's not like you just say, it's not just a hook, but it has to complement everything that's around it. So it's a melody. Yeah. It's a sub-melody. I mean, it's like when you listen to orchestration, there's all this stuff going on. Right. And there's, you know, little things like I learned from, I probably haven't implemented this as much as I meant to, but I used to work with some of the most interesting people when I was a kid. Didn't realize the enormity of it, but I remember I got to work with Burt Bacharach. You know that name, right?
Sure.
That's probably going way for anybody that's younger than us is probably not, but you can look up Burt Bacharach. Yeah. You can look at the songs. He would write over the bar. He said Frank Sinatra, this is a great story. Frank Sinatra told him he wrote in hat sizes, which is, I didn't wear hats, so I had to go look it up. You know, it's like 5 and 3/16, you know. Yeah. And so, but music is not meant to be just 4/4. Right. You know, it's like, so I like to hear when phrases extend over bars. And so all those things interested me when I was a young emerging guitar player. I heard it a lot. I used to listen to a lot of saxophone, other instruments. But so anyway, coming back to I'm really not great at editing myself on these answers, but that's what I'm interested in. And so you over a period of time you develop an instinct.
Yes.
And you know, people when they hire you, they hire me, they're also hiring us for our thoughts. Yeah. So you go with it, you know, and if you have a little success, it goes a long way. And I'm not afraid at this ripe old age of having bad ideas. Right. As a matter of fact, most of the best ideas I've had as a producer, which has been my day job for the last 30 years. Yeah. But certainly in my discovery, even in writing some guitar songs, all came off mistakes. Right. Kind of that fearlessness, because if you're making music like this, which I had when I was well into myself and kind of didn't want anybody to see that, you know, the first 1,000 compliments are really dangerous, right? Because either you're going to get an ego that's out of control, or you're going to develop a defense mechanism that you don't want people to know that you're just as fucking human as anybody else. Exactly. And that probably has been the most liberating. I don't know if it's helped me make better music, but it you know, as long as we're talking about all this stuff together, I don't want to seem like I'm just shamelessly promoting a guitar record. This guitar record has actually been a parallel. It's a musical journey for me. Yeah. But it's much more of an emotional awakening. So
did you have all these tunes like laying around in your head for a while? No. Were they sort of?
No, not like what you did when we were talking about Plexi Soul. No.
Yeah.
No, I sat down and I remember the first day. You and I had a conversation, and also I have a dear friend named Mike Reed. And it's not to say anybody else hasn't said this.
Former Cincinnati Bengal.
Former Cincinnati Bengal.
I love that.
Defensive end, wonderful musician, piano player.
But I Can't Make You Love Me. Right?
Yeah. But he and I we talk about everything but music. But music always makes us way. And he did the same thing. He said, Dan, you should think about it. So anyway, I sat down and found a groove that I liked.
That was step one.
That was step one. I just found a groove and I just turned it on and I just started playing. I think it was that, it was like that, it was like, that was it. Okay. So anyway, so that was called Song One.
Okay.
So I wrote that and I didn't have any bass on it. I just played a little rhythm part and I came up with a melody, right?
Yeah.
And then the song started developing, and then I learned how to use Pro Tools. So I'd edit the drums and put fills here so it would feel like there was a composition. And then I just kept recording.
Damn.
Then I put a chord in, so I changed the pre-chorus, and then I got a chorus, like that. And all of a sudden, at the end of the day, there's a song, and I just put it away. And I started doing it every day or so. And just this stuff came out.
Fantastic.
I'm more of a balladeer guy, so I went to the ballads immediately. But here's a funny thing too. You gave me a great piece of advice, by the way. I don't know if you remember this. There's a lot of stuff you get, and I'm not just. I mean, for your listeners, I'm not patronizing. I'm being honest.
Dude.
But you remember when I sent you the first iteration of that, and you said,
yeah.
You said the way you said it, is that sequence, which is code for that's not the sequence, right? And you said let somebody sequence it.
Oh, the sequence of the album songs.
Yeah,
it's important.
And
it's important. Yeah.
Chris Donegan did one.
Great.
And I rejected it.
Okay.
You know how much I love Chris. He's a freaking great guitar player.
Yeah.
The guy who ended up sequencing was Justin Niebank.
Of course. Yeah.
And I thought, well, that makes sense because we came from the same era.
Right.
And he said, and he ended up, not the whole thing, but the sequence that I wrote him, and he had no clue about this because I'd put titles on him by this point. That was the hardest part about it.
Right. I had the same problem. I know exactly.
So song one ended up being song one, and song two ended up being song two, and I don't remember after that point, but that was it. Yeah.
Wow, man.
Yeah.
Fascinating. So I was wondering about, like, you didn't have that stuff laying around. Was there anything on the record that was like an old melody that you had in your head? Is all fresh?
None. Zero. Literally, it was last July and the first part of August.
Amazing.
That stuff.
Do you have any riffs in your head of riffs that you made up a long time ago that you still think about every once in a while?
Did I think about?
Yeah, that like will you eventually play once in a while, or like an old riff that you made up? Turn it up and play it. Let me hear it.
That's as much as I can remember of it. It's like there's a song called "Can't Get Closer."
Okay.
And that's all I remember.
Okay.
And then, I mean, I always liked that riff.
It's a good riff.
That was in our band Giant.
Maybe that's going to be on the second album.
No, that's a song.
Oh, it's already a song.
That was a song, yeah. No,
I meant a riff that never became a song.
Oh. No,
you just had to.
No, because Tom, this is the difference. I haven't been playing guitar for 30 years, really playing guitar. So I'm like catching up, and so I when I caught these riffs. Now the riffs, believe it or not, came as a result of a groove. Everything was a groove.
Right.
And so it made me think of different. You like that one song, just see.
Oh, yes. Dude, yeah. Yes. Yeah.
I know that because that's kind of your. What's the first song on the Plexi Soul record? What's that riff on that one? Do you know?
It was probably like.
That was yeah.
That thing.
That bespeaks your soul, by the way.
Yeah, that was all just shit I made up on the homeschooling thing. So I love it. Okay, if you were gonna say, we all look. I mean, fuck. I mean, I am a constant walking library of my influences. It all comes out. You know, all the shit that I loved. You know, Gilmore, Pete Townsend. You know, it just filters through what I do. It comes out, and people will eventually say, "Well, that's great. Sounds like Gilmore." You know, if you were going to say the top 3 or 4 things in the spice rack, that you took from your influences to put into your record, what would they be? Like the main ingredients of your influences that made it.
It's easy. Because it's when I was. It was between 14 and 17 for me, which is between 19 and 20. Let's say 6 years, and it's easy. It's 1974 to 1980. And can I add one thing real quick?
Please.
Because since we're talking to an audience that you have, Brett has, you know, people every once in a while ask you advice, and I'm usually like, what, you know, live your life and practice.
Sure.
I don't have much good advice, but there's one piece of advice that I've learned from, and finally, to this point, never be afraid of emulating somebody and owning up to it. You don't have to be. Everybody builds off something.
Sure.
And you don't have to be so in your own skin and so identifiable first. Identify with everything. That's what I did. Totally. So when I was answering your question, I mean, and no shame, because I told you that story about what Steve Lukather said to me when I moved out to the West Coast. He said, "Yeah, it's great. He sounds a lot like me." Yeah. And at first you're going, "Oh, I don't," you know, it's like, so I'm Steve Lukather, right? Right. That's not a bad position to be in the first place. But once you kind of get your own little tantrum ego out of there, Steve would probably say who he was following, you know, footsteps. Sure. But when I came of age, really musically came of age, that was right around the time Larry Carlton put out that record, Room 335. Right. You know, I was hearing his presence on some Steely Dan records, and also that was when Asia came out. So when I heard a guitar player superimposing, I didn't know what that was, but harmonically, it wasn't blues scales.
Yes.
But he was connecting the dots in a way that just made my ears go, whoa, what is that, you know?
Amazing shit. God.
And he had a great touch, and, you know, I mean, it's just all the above. And
no doubt.
And it was also the time when, I mean, talk about the luck of being born at a certain time. I'll never forget when I heard Blow by Blow. Yeah. That may have been a little bit before. I get him a little murky. That may have been 74, and Carlton was 76.
And Wired too, right?
And then Wired. Yeah, and so those 2 records, and not to discount anybody else's. Right. That time there was also a record out by Al Di Meola, who at that time, nobody played with that clarity and that just those chops. It was so. He played with Chick Corea and all those guys, but he put out a record called Elegant Gypsy. Right. And the composition and the playing on that record were just. So, okay, so that's Carlton and Lee Ritenour. There were some things that he was doing. The Captain's Journey.
I never heard that. Was it killer?
Yeah, Dave Grusin and him did that together, and he's a different type of improviser. It was a different type of record, but again, it was arrangement. The songs were just great. All the songs, the melodies were there, right? Yeah. Robin Ford, The Inside Story. Okay. Never forget that record. That record was really monumental to me. And I wasn't a great. I don't know how you are, but I'm not a great we had the needle drop back then because we couldn't slow things down. So you just maybe that was the best thing because I could never learn everything note for note. I didn't have perfect pitch. Good relative pitch. So I figured it the best I could, right? And that kind of gave me my diving board, so to speak. And then there was Steve Lukather came out with Toto, and that took me back to some records that he was playing on when he was probably 19 with Jay Graydon and Ray Parker Jr. Okay. And so I was enamored with the way parts were played. I was always wanting to be a studio player, but all that stuff spoke to me on a song basis. Yeah. Like I just knew the songs, and if I couldn't play the solos, I didn't care. I wanted to, and that was all that's kind of part and parcel of what I did.
What about I hear a little bit on this record. I hear a little of Steve Morrison, a little John McLaughlin too in places. Were you into that kind of shit?
Free Fall. I can't believe that I forgot that record. Yeah, Steve Morse. John McLaughlin I was certainly where I remember when I got Bitches Brew, And I had some record he and Carlos Santana did together. I wasn't as, respected the hell out of him, but there was something that I didn't relate to as much.
Right. Yeah.
I wasn't as much, he was harmonically in a different place, and so I didn't.
Yeah. I was going to ask you a little bit about, we were chatting, we talked for about an hour before this video started, and there was a couple things that got said that I wish we would have had in the video.
Yeah, we can repeat it.
We can repeat it. You mentioned that Steve Lukather thing, right? And like how, I look back at YouTube videos of interviews and stuff, and you were there, you lived this.
Yeah.
I was so far away from this. I always wondered, it seemed like that 80s LA session scene was really competitive as an outsider looking at it. You were there living it. If you compared the competitiveness of that world to the modern world of the competitiveness in Nashville session thing, can you talk a little bit about any similarities or anything you see? Like, I don't ever think that the Nashville session scene is that competitive, but as a producer, does it look that way to you? How do you feel about that?
Well, boy, it's a great question, Tom. I didn't, when you're around, usually the best of the best always seem to kind of send past that kind of need to be zero sum. Like, in other words, win and the other people lose.
Yeah.
Pointless, right? We're all there to do a job. So my experience when I was in my 20s out in Los Angeles, and I told you, and I'm sure the audience would like to know the people I played with daily, if not weekly, But
I was motherfuckers.
They were. I mean, and remain. I mean, now Steve had his band, so he was becoming a rock star, and so when he left, I mean, it was like there was this void,
Yeah.
And Mike Landau was one of the people I used to work with a lot if they would have two guitar players.
Sure.
And he was so good, and I told you everything that he played, it always sounded better. It's like, it's like if you touched my guitar, it sounded better, But it's just because you're at that age. We were competing for gigs, but you could not be unaware of how great these people were.
Yeah.
He was the kindest guy in the world. Paul Jackson Jr. I mean, the stuff I learned from Paul's playing he was arguably the best of the best at what he did, I mean, and he goes beyond just the rhythm stuff. He's a great jazz player.
Yeah.
And I've experienced the same thing in Nashville. There's every once in a while you get a rotten egg in there, who is playing to win.
Right.
As if, we know all the analogies. I played a lot of sports, and it doesn't matter the superstars. It matters the teamwork. And so good session work is about teamwork.
100%.
But look at all the great guitar players here in town.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, do you, like, everybody, like when I was talking to, it was Donegan the other day about working with you, and the amount of respect that people have, like, just, you weren't there that day, so we were talking about you,
Yeah.
And I mean, if we're all honest, we're all competing. We want to be as good as we can be.
No doubt.
But it's not at the exclusion of somebody else. Because you play this long game. You got to be, you have, as you know, you have to be a support mechanism.
Yes.
And it's not about us in the end. So I don't know if I'm answering your question about that.
Is there truth to the fact that, like, I've been sold, like, see, in Nashville, the way it's always been since I've been here, I moved here in 92, like, if I can't do a gig, if somebody calls me for a gig, I'll recommend several other guitar players, and that's always been that way. I've been told.
I got this.
Okay,
this is too good. No, I've been told I'm not.
Yeah.
When you recommend them, but have you ever been in that situation? You go, I'll just use us. Somebody calls me, Dan, can you do? No, I can't do this gig. Hey, there's great guitar player Tom Bukovac. Yeah, we already tried him. And then if you dare go one more, and then they can. We tried it.
Yeah.
Have you ever experienced that too?
Dude, of course.
Okay.
We're all like the fifth call.
Yeah. Okay, so go ahead. Sorry,
but like, I've always proudly recommended guys, and like I never worry about those guys like stealing that account,
right?
Or because we call. I don't even know if people still use that word account, but that's an old session word. Oh, he's one of my main accounts.
Yeah.
A producer that hires a guy. I don't think people still use that word, but that's an old session word. But I always was very, you know, open to suggesting other people, but I've been told, like in LA in the old days, you didn't do that. Is that bullshit?
Well,
because you were worried they really would steal the account. And
I honest to God, no, I didn't. Maybe it's just because of the people I was around.
Yeah.
But nobody played like that in my time out there in that sandbox. You know, I mean, I was around people like Dean Parks. I mean, remember that last session we did with Dean at Vince's house?
He's unreal.
Everybody knew who was really good. And so it's like if you dared try to stifle that, you'd look like an idiot.
Totally. Yeah.
And I feel like the same way here in Nashville. Now, again, they're always, you know, there's no need to mention any names, but every once in a while you'll run into somebody that doesn't play those same rules, and usually they get ferreted out.
Totally.
You can't either you're good or you're not.
Yeah, and anybody that talks a big game usually gets exposed immediately because all the baddest motherfuckers never mention a word about it.
Well, okay, and I'll take it. Here's I learned more about session playing when I quit session playing.
Yeah.
And I started hiring guitar players, which you were one of the first people that I.
Well, you started my career. When you started calling me, everyone started calling me. So
they would have done it
thank
anyway.
you for that.
No, they would have done it anyway. So yeah, but I got to be there. But as a producer, I used the word account when I was really young. I think probably into my 30s. Yeah. And I always loved when producers would, you know, get me on every record they did. But when I was a producer, I realized that was musical suicide to a degree. Because I have limited ideas, and if I surround myself with the same musician, same band, it's going to be the same record with just small little iterations different. So you have to, you know, it's just like you have to be in it for the long game, for the ecosystem, to really work.
Yes.
And I mean, in Dog's years, you and I are Methuselah now.
Right.
You're Methuselah. Right. I should be 6 feet under as far as my age. You know, you're wearing diapers. I'm already in the ground. But when you think about it, when you really think about it, if you play with that enthusiasm, like what you just said, like it's like get Rob McNally. Get you know anybody in your class. In the long run, that's the better business model.
Totally.
Because number one, people know it's not about you, man. You're thinking about these records.
Totally.
And somebody's going to go, thanks. And maybe Rob was better for that project.
Sure.
Well, that's okay. But then it comes back around. You're honest. Yeah. And then you're better for the other record. Yeah, so that's the way to do it. But no, I was never.
Totally.
My predecessors, the guys I looked up to, I mentioned them a minute ago, and Jay Graydon was another one. I don't think they acted like that. No. I mean, let's get some names. Ask them, you know, I mean.
Yeah, I mean, well, you got to be, there's a fine line between ego and confidence, right?
Yeah.
This is the thing. I've said this many times. I feel like musicians have to have confidence.
Oh, yeah.
You know, you make jokes about having an ego. Dude, I've been working with you for a long time. I would say on a 1 to 10 scale, your ego is like a 1. I know people who are like have egos, and man, you are very low on that list. You're very realistic about things, and I try to be the same way. Hopefully, we all realize that. But man, confidence is different. Like I'm not like I can't even hardly go to a dinner party with people who aren't musicians because I have very low self-esteem about many things in life. You know. I've always been very insecure. Like a lot of musicians are that way. But when it comes to music, there's not a person that could walk in this room that I would be intimidated by because I've been doing this for so long.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't want to try to do like a sight reading Herbie Hancock session. I can't do that. Yeah. But I'm just saying.
But you could play.
I could
on
play
it.
But like I can't read it.
Right.
But like, and you have that too. Anybody who's done this for a long time, you know you can deliver. You know. So healthy confidence, I think, is a really good thing.
Yeah.
And like, because I always say that goes for any job. Like I made the analogy, like if you hire somebody to come over and fix your roof, man, you say like, man, can you fix this and make it nice? You want them to go, fuck yeah, no problem. It's going to be amazing.
Yes.
You don't want someone going, I think I can do it.
Right.
You don't want that. You want someone who knows they can do it. Mm-hmm. And did you ever notice this? when you've been on both sides of the glass. You've produced as much as you've played. A lot of times when someone hires you to sit there and do overdubs, they're more worried about what you think of what you're playing than what they think of it. If they sense that you're not 100% into it, they start going, man, play that back. But when you play some shit on the overdub and you're like, yeah, like that's what I was trying to do. They're like, fuck yeah, next song. Yeah. You know, that's it, right? But if they sense any unsureness on your part, like I went through a period, years ago where I was very, very, like I was going through a period where like I was questioning everything I was playing. It was a weird period. I got over it, but I went through this period where I was a little too old to be like hip guy and not quite old enough to be legend guy. This dark period there where like I was starting to question everything I was playing. Is this cool? Like I thought it was cool years ago, but I don't really know anymore. And but like if they sense that in you, boy, they can feel it, and they don't want that. Nobody wants that. Yeah. They want you to know that what you're playing is the shit. Yeah. They don't want to question that.
Well, there's a we'll finish it. And
well, that's it. I mean, do you feel that way when you're watching guys work for you? I mean, you don't want them questioning anything, right?
I might use a little different slant on it. I mean, I agree with you. I think I learned. I was lucky because I got to play. I got to play for some of the world's greatest producers.
Yes.
And so I got to see things that I didn't even know they were questions I would ask at some point.
Right.
And I'll never forget working for Mutt Lange for a lot of reasons, just the friendship and the conversations. But I just noticed that he was not afraid that he was going to get you across the finish line, period.
Right.
You're going to make music, and it was going to be substantial. Now, how you got from point A to point B may not feel great. It may take 3 days, but there was never a sense. I've been with producers when I was not the right person cast for music.
Yeah.
And the best thing for any of us to be able to say, it would have been better for me to say, look, no offense, but you cast the wrong guy.
Yeah.
Go get him.
Right.
When I was younger, of course I wouldn't say that because I didn't want to give that away. I was too insecure. Right. But I also noticed when I'd play for people that when the idea wasn't happening, and you could see like a producer, this would be the other side of the coin, the producers that I learned a lot from because of what they did that I didn't agree with.
Right.
They were so nervous because they felt like they were being exposed.
Right.
They didn't have an idea either.
Right.
And as opposed to just trust the fact that you got all these great, something's going to come up if you just can sit with the awkwardness, the being uncomfortable, being scared.
Right.
So it's, yes, you want confidence. Yeah, we're all good here. I mean, come on, there's no schmoes here, but we can be honest. Yeah. This isn't happening. Honest. Yeah. This feels like shit, and honest. We're going to come out, we're going to figure this sucker out.
Oh, shit.
And if that meant me as a guitar player saying, hey, I'll come back and I'm not going to charge you for it.
Right.
Whatever's going to get it done.
Right.
That's the difference. But that's honesty combined with the confidence.
That's it.
All the above.
That's it.
But you also got the guy on your roof, going and come across something. And I've had some subcontractors who said they could do it. And I found out later there was something above their pay grade and they didn't want to I'd rather just tell me that's up there. I don't know how to fix it. Yeah. We're all good then. Yeah, exactly. I'm hiring you back,
Exactly. Here's another thing I've been wondering about. Okay, you made the transformation from well-known session player to well-known producer, right? And both jobs have their amount of pressure, right? There's a lot of pressure as a session player, a lot of pressure as a producer. I imagine, because I've had a very small scale level version of this, but when you first start producing big money label records, I can imagine when you're not a household name as a producer, some of those early projects when people said, Dan, we need this to be a hit.
Yeah.
That must have been a whole different kind of pressure than anything you ever experienced as a player.
Yes and no. Again, I was a well-known player at that point when I jumped to another kind of part of the profession. I was so naive and the naivete helped me when I moved to Los Angeles when I was 20.
Yeah.
And I got some rooms that were so much bigger than me. My wife was telling me this the other day. She said, you never were nervous. I said, I don't think it was because I wasn't nervous. I just didn't know any better, you know? And I think the same thing happened in producing. Like for me, it was just an extension of what I'd been doing as a guitar player, just arranging things. But the difference was I got to call the people I wanted to come in, and I had to learn real time, the relationship between an artist or a label and stuff like that. And I was pretty good with people, so that wasn't daunting. But the pressure of being a producer and being a session player, the thing, here's my take on it. Whether a record succeeded or failed, you were judged on how good you brought it that day. So it's quality based, right? Your relationship was with the producer or the artist, but it's quality based. You keep bringing that quality, you're going to be around, right? Not a guarantee, because if they find another rhythm section that does, but it's the metrics for being a successful producer is one thing. Is that it's successful? Is that it makes money? And that's where it runs afoul with this thing that you and I love, which is still holding these things and trying to discover ourselves or something else. That's a different metric. That's another reason why it's like all of a sudden here at my advanced years, I'm not just rediscovering something, I'm falling into why I love music.
Yeah.
Because it's not predicated on...
Yeah, you can hear it on the record, dude.
You think?
Oh, definitely. It's just joyful. People are going to love this record for a lot of reasons. There's something for everybody on there. It never gets boring. It's not indulgent.
I don't have enough chops to be indulgent.
No, but it's great. I mean, like, I get bored easy. I know you get bored easy. It doesn't linger on anything too long. It's great. It's killer, man. And you can hear the joy in it, man. You can hear, like, I remember when you first texted me that clip of you putting the string section on. I was just like, damn. Like, of course, I've been busting my ass trying to make these instrumental records, and of course, your first try like knocks them right out of the fucking. It's amazing.
Well, see, well, first of all, thank you. It was that Texas change because Kristen Wilkinson is a great. She's a great musician, but she's a great string writer.
Yes.
And I had asked her a specific thing. I was enamored with Claire Fisher arrangements.
Okay.
The jazz pianist on Prince records of all things.
Okay.
And so I said, pick two songs. Well, there's one song I know I need it on in this.
That's some inside shit.
Pick a ballad.
Yeah.
And yes, it is inside.
Yeah.
But I was doing all that stuff and you know how it is with anything you do. I don't know if I have a certain amount of self-loathing of anything that I've ever done. Oh, yeah. And I don't try to live in that. I mean, I really don't. It's not fun. But I realize it's just part of trying to be better. Yeah. So as I live with this little guy on my shoulder my whole life, and it's like, it's okay. It's okay not to just think that you're that, about yourself, you're that good. Yeah. So when you texted, whatever you texted, that was the first time I thought, okay, I'm going to let this thing out. Yeah. Because I went through, I don't know if you went through this when you did your first project, but I kind of got close to, 3/4, and then I started thinking, this blows. Oh, yeah. And this is going to be embarrassing. Yeah. And because you can't hear yourself for who you are. You just can't, right?
You can't. No.
And what's funny, another big thing, as long as we're talking about it, can I go on this theme?
Please.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know how we're time-wise we're doing it.
You getting bored yet, Brent?
No.
Okay. Are we okay so far? Okay, well, just here's another. You said something. I was really insecure. I'm not as I've never. Well, I just tell all the people that listen to this, right? This is where I go to for anything knowledgeable about guitar. I don't know that much about guitars. I just never have, because I've never been enamored with a guitar itself, right?
You're not a gear guy.
I'm not. I'm definitely not. But and even though I used to have all the racks, it was all basically one sound. So you said something. And I'm assuming you're being honest. You said, I really like your tone.
Yeah, the tones are ridiculous.
And I was like, because I've always really been insecure about tones.
Yeah.
And you know the story. Did I tell you the story about the tones on that?
A little bit, but please tell us again, man.
Again, it's like the analogy is what sometimes you get. I learned this with Pro Tools, paralysis with options, right? That was the worst thing about Pro Tools.
Option anxiety.
Option anxiety. Yeah. And so I like it when you have, back when I was a kid, they had a crayon box with 8 crayons in it. I remember the first time I got the 64.
Right.
I didn't know the names of the colors. It's like, give me the 8. It takes the pressure off.
Yeah.
So when I started writing this stuff, I basically had one guitar, maybe 2, because I had just gotten this Jazz Master that Keith gave me. It was kind of cool. But that one's a little tougher to navigate solo-wise. So I went back to a Strat, and then I kind of thought, well, I'll just play my old guitar. I hadn't played it in a while. Derek from Rev came over to my house, REVV, the amp. And he had shown me this other amp a year before, which was a big, massive 100-watt thing that just was, it was like all the distortion, your hair's in the wind and stuff like that. And I didn't have as much use for it. It's a great amp, but it wasn't, I had a bunch of those sitting in the wings. He called and said, can I show you this little 40-watt amp? And I said, that sounds like something kind of cool. Right. So he brought it over and I just plugged it in, hit a couple things. I thought, well, that's kind of nice. It's just nice. So I just sat it right in front of where I sit, and that was, I had a Blue Moon pedal for a little bit of reverb. Yeah. And I think
all the amp distortion was coming from the amp.
Or if I needed a little bit more, I think there was something, and I talked to Mike Landau about something that he had used when I heard him play live with James Taylor. I asked him about a tone, and he said, oh, it's just this. I think it was a Boss SE2. Okay. Right? The little yellow guy? The little
SD2?
Whatever.
Dual, SD2. I used to use those, Dual overdrive?
Yeah. They're a little not, it's really hard to kind of Anyway, but so I had one of those. Yeah. And so that was it. And me and pedal boards, it's just, ever since I just got tired of just trying to figure out things. Yeah. And so that's all I had. And so I started writing songs. And that, I thought, I'm going to go back and replace everything.
Yeah, they were just scratches at that point.
They were scratches, and they ended up not. It's like when I went back to play again. Now there's some things I punched in. I mean, because I couldn't abide because it was just shitty playing. Right. But it was I didn't have options. Well, I mean, I had all my amps there, but I was just writing. So that was so beautiful because then I just started thinking about music. And then you think about your fingers, and most of what we do is in our fingers anyway. Totally. So that was the whole thing. And I don't know, why did I get on that?
Well, we were just talking about, the gear and like how you got the tones for the amp.
Because of what you said about tones. That was it, because that was always an insecurity. It has nothing to do. I love that amp. So, but it was you talk about dark period. The word cool is a bitch goddess. Right. Because cool is usually it's cultural, right? And it's usually associated with being young, hip, all those things. Right. As you get older, you abdicate that a little bit because you're not cool anymore. Yeah. So you got to get rid of you got to change the vocabulary, right? You got to change it because I would not say, if I look at myself, I'm not cool, but I have some road experience. Yes. And so but my darkness was in, because you and I, and this is stuff maybe these folks that are listening to this, they'll take a piece out of this. When I played it for you, I'm sitting there going, well, freaking Tom Bukovac is the tone king. You're just known as that. And when I pushed go on that little drop box, and I was like going, oh no, dude. He's gonna hear through it, but you didn't hear it. Dude, isn't that amazing?
Yeah, dude, all this shit, these things, voices in our heads, we're all just us.
But that's it. But everybody has their version of that, right? Dude, and you doubt yourself. Yeah. Oh. So here's the moral of the story.
Crippling.
Go through your doubt. Yeah. And it feels bad. That's okay. It's all right. Yeah. Push through that stuff. Yeah. Figure out who you are. I mean, do you watch? Okay, here's a guy that I just saw on. This is another thing too. I'll just go riff with this for a second. Yeah. Josh Meter.
No, I don't know. No.
Oh, look up Josh Meter.
How do you spell it?
Meader, I think. Okay. Just go. Me and Instagram, man. I'm way big on this now. Okay. This guy. It's like, you know, there's a synapse between
inspirational speaker type guy.
No, this is a guitar player.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So from this point down to these fingertips, right?
Yeah.
It takes a while to get there for me sometimes, you know. So I've come up with some good things, but some of it, it's like this young guitar player. He looks like he's late 20s, early 30s. It's like he's growing fingers out of his brain.
Wow.
And so when he plays, it just, all you got to do is look him up on YouTube or anything. And
what style of music?
Fusion.
Okay.
But it's like, it's beyond, it's like there's no synapse, there's no delay between his fingers.
Yeah.
Whatever he thinks, this is my
right
interpretation.
Yeah.
There's no bounds. There's no limit, I should say. And so, of course, I think I just discovered him after I finished mixing this record.
Right.
And I just sat there and basically it was, you can curse on this, right? We
do
whatever. Yeah.
Fuck.
Okay, good. Fuck. No, but that was the first thing that I said was I watched him play, and it was, I remember just saying out loud, I had my phone.
Yeah.
And I just said, fuck me.
Yeah.
Because I'm not that.
No.
But it was right then I thought, you know what? Come on. At a certain point,
when that dude hears you talking about him, it's going to be the greatest day of his life.
Well,
okay,
he's undeniably but the point is Josh has got somebody in his life. It's like, but the point is you got to at some point go, man, you got to like what you do.
Totally.
Right?
Totally.
I mean, it doesn't mean you have to, like you said, you don't have to have this massive ego, but that's your voice. That's my voice. Exactly. And we don't own everything. So there you go.
This is going to be hard for you to answer, so I have to start first because you're so humble. I think about each record. You know, I've made, since I came out of total anonymity at age 50, I made 3 records, and the record with Guthrie, there's a moment on one of the songs. It's this little solo bit at the end of the song called Black Cloud, and I feel like it was just one of those. You know how every once in a while you just feel like, man, where did that come from?
Yeah.
Like you get so lucky, like something channels through you, and it can only happen once, and it got recorded. You know, it was a total winging it live moment, it's like my personal favorite solo I've ever played. Thank God it made it onto a recording. Right? Is there a moment on this record that you could point to and go, man, that is like my favorite moment? On like so it could be something that somebody else played, just like a moment that you just like, I'm so glad we got that on tape. You know,
probably because I had to punch it a lot of times. And sometimes I have bigger, my ears are bigger, and my eyes are bigger than.
Yeah.
But I aspire, so sometimes I'll just say I'm going to sit there and play it until I get it.
I'm going to get this.
I like the. Well, there's one lick which we were just talking about a minute. The end of the solo on the first song of the record. That I like that, but if like it's up to me, what I'm the most proud of, or that I most enjoy is the way I play melodies on certain things. Like there's some licks on the solos that are pretty cool, you know.
Yes.
But the last song of the record is called "When Words Aren't Enough."
Yes.
Like that's really that is the demo guitar, and there's some really thin moments on it because I was using a Strat on that one. You've seen that guitar? It's a remake. It's like a Pro Shop. It's a really good guitar. I like the guitar, but it's like a '59. You've seen that baby blue guitar that I bring around.
I don't know that. Yeah.
It just is a real Strat, is what it is. It doesn't have all the stuff, you know.
Okay.
The bastard stuff that I like, you know, and.
The tricks.
You really have to play. There is nothing on that except maybe just a little reverb and just a little bit of distortion. I mean, just the slightest bit. And there's certain bits, I'd say 3/4 of that melody, that I could never play it like that again.
Right.
And I tried.
Right.
And the reason I know is because I tried, because I hated some of the sound.
Yes.
But it was just a moment when because I was writing it.
Yes, it's a whole different world.
Right, when you're out of your own way, and you're not trying to impress,
Yes.
which is me, you know?
Oh, man, okay. I've always thought I'm gonna wrap this up. I know
I want to see how many questions you can ask.
Well, I could go all day.
Amazing.
But
It's amazing.
Wouldn't you say that? I remember look back at some of the earliest videos I made. The first couple of videos I made on my little series, I only thought I was going to make a few videos. So I basically said all the shit that really matters to me in those first couple of videos.
Right.
And then from the last 400 more videos was just an extrapolation of that. But the most basic concepts of stuff that really matters to me are all in those earliest videos, because I thought that's all I was ever going to make.
Yeah.
And one of them was I was talking about how I feel like on any instrument, vocal, saxophone, guitar, keyboards, anything, the most important thing is phrasing, right? And I feel like when we as human beings are watching Star Search or whatever, even the housewife that doesn't know shit about music that goes, I like that singer.
Yeah.
What they're picking up on is great phrasing,
yeah.
right? And isn't it amazing how many people don't understand that concept? Like how important phrasing is. Like, I'm gonna sing a melody. Okay. Boom, doo, 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 doo. Okay. What key is that? Let's see. C, B. Yeah, B.
B flat.
Okay, B.
I thought you
I was singing this. I was singing.
Oh. Or
You can play it in a lot of keys. I'll play it in A flat.
I mean, it's like, but even the strings, right?
Yes. So, exactly. You could play that a million different
Yes. Yeah.
And like, we could line up 100 guitar players.
Yeah.
Of all varying levels of ability.
Yep.
And you and I, or anybody that plays, could sit and watch them play just those notes. And we go, there's a guy. And then we watch 10 more, and then we go, oh, that guy knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
It's so, the beauty is in the simplicity, and the difficulty is in the simplicity, right? Sure, it's great to be able to play a million chops, but to be able to sell that lick, or any lick that's so simple. I mean, when you're in there producing a record, and someone lays out something for you like that, on any instrument, and they play it perfectly with the beautiful phrasing, is it just the greatest feeling in the world? You're just like, fuck yes.
Yeah.
When they just lay it out for you, man.
And then even a step farther, when that it's if you're really good, right? You hire really good people. If it's always going to be good, but there's also that moment when it goes beyond all of us.
Yes.
And it's just a moment. And if you're lucky enough, like you said, it gets captured. I mean, but think how many times we've roasted over takes because something else was more important, And that's where we can be indulgent on these records to say, this is what I mean to say.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, there was a melody that there was in A minor, there was a, which is a D minor.
Yeah, killer, yeah.
And
what are the chords behind that?
The D minor.
Okay, let me play that. What's the rhythm of it? I'll play the rhythm, you play the rhythm. E minor?
Yeah.
And then D minor? Okay,
D minor.
2, 3, 4.
Does it again. Getting ready to go B flat.
Then what?
F. Let's see. Let's do A minor. So.
Yeah.
A minor. Again. E. I think it's F chord. get back to A minor.
Yes, bro.
B flat. Sharp. Anyway, you get the idea. And you can just play that. That was a good one too. I felt really good. That's called, what's that called? The titles, man. Me and titles, I've never. Oh,
It's the one in A minor.
it's the second song on the record. Yeah, it's good.
So the first song you mentioned that you really thought was cool, the one you played on the blue guitar. What's the name of that one? Do you know? Is it the first song?
No, it's the last song.
Last song. Yeah. Okay, great.
I wrote another song for Sherry. You know, Sherry and I've been together since we were like children. Yeah. And I wrote her a song. Then I just ended up doing it on classical guitar, but I played it for her. And Sherry's like a total pop person. Yeah. And she heard the one, and she kind of was like, "Yeah, I like that." Which again, that's when somebody goes, "Yeah, I like that." That means they don't like it that much. But she heard this other one. It's like a 70s. It's like do 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 do. You know.
Yeah.
You know, that type of.
Yeah.
That's her cup of tea. Okay. That 70s, like light. It's like the yacht rock piece of the song.
Love it. Yeah.
But I love that song. And she said, "Well, can I have that?"
Ah.
Yeah, you can have any song you want.
Traded in the song.
She said, "Can I have both?" I said, "No, you get one." But that's the last song of the record, and it just describes who she is.
Exactly. Does she ever? How often do you ever play her stuff that you're working on? Like when you're producing shit for other people? Do you ever play her stuff?
Very, very. She'll wander in if an idea is kind of half there.
Yeah.
She's always spot on because she just listens like a
super musical. Yeah.
But it's like, well, the vocals and that. Well, I'm working on something else. So we part ways on that stuff.
Is there anything you've ever made that she really loves? Like what would be her favorite thing that you've done? Like a record that you made that she really likes? Do you have any idea?
She's like, I've been producing in Nashville, so you know the songs. Like she likes the poppy stuff, So whatever songs that she's just gonna like the ones you can sing the most.
Yeah, man, totally. That's amazing. I can't believe you guys are awesome. How long have you been married? That's amazing.
We've been married 43 years, but we've been together a lot longer than that. But that's you luck out on something like that. You have to be going the same path and keep going. That's you don't determine that. That's luck. Man.
That's a whole nother episode. How to stay married. That's a good one. You're going to be on that one, Fred. How about this? We'll close off. Teach them in one lick. Anything you can think of. It could be anything. Or a concept. That's a good one.
I mean, to me, you know what? It's like I love
zoom in on that. Yeah.
I love, and I don't, I've always loved the way,
You're hearing that over.
That's a good one. See, I can't remember what I just played, so I'll say this. That's a good one. That's just better. I've been experimenting a lot with that type of...
Very liquid bends.
Yeah.
Yes. And you push your fingers really together when you're making those bends. Get a lot of power there.
Tell me that again.
You're pushing your fingers together when you're making those bends. They're very tight together, yeah?
Yeah. Well, how do you do it?
Well, there's a lot of people that don't understand that. I do the same thing, but a lot of people, I'll see people bending and their fingers are all spread apart.
Oh.
And they're not getting any power.
Oh, yeah.
Like when you bend enough, that shit is tight.
Yeah.
Like you were squeezing those together.
Yeah. And I noticed, because I listened to something you did there about how much you use your thumb.
Oh, yeah.
Thumb is a big part of all that stuff.
Muting and everything.
Yeah.
Muting.
But also, to me, it's like, I love, those type of,
yeah,
and then how you,
the way it acts with distortion. Yeah, see, this is cool about, you can do that and not sound like you're trying to rip off Jeff Beck. I love that. See, most people, when they try to do that shit, I just go, no, it's to Jeff Beck. But you do it in a way that's not, it's unique.
I never learned his music enough so I can't rip him off because I can't do what he did.
Exactly. But you've always been played like that. It's not like, man, that's a trick. That's a slippery slope. You start doing that kind of stuff, boy. You know what I mean? All right, chord-wise, give us one chord concept that you've been thinking about lately. Voicing, like what's intriguing to you? I'll tell you what I've been working on.
Okay.
And then see if this inspires a good idea.
Yeah.
Like if you know, a lot of ways to play a B minor, a lot of ways to play a B flat major 7, right? Mm-hmm. You know, you could be down here.
And all the common tones. Yeah.
But now, what if you start putting the fifths down on the bass?
Oh, yeah.
And then you got
Yeah.
that B flat major
Here's
7.
your 90s upbringing coming in. Yeah.
E flat major 7.
Yeah.
C minor 7.
Yeah.
Those are cool voicings. I love that kind of stuff. Anything like that you find yourself gravitating towards, like certain voicings that you really like?
I'm going to be mining that in my own way. That's a great, I didn't think of that. So we always rip each other off, right?
Yeah.
You know, not in the same way, but I perused some of it when I was doing this. It sounds like I'm promoting this thing, doesn't it?
No.
It really does.
It doesn't.
In my book.
It doesn't. No.
But that's my point of reference.
Yeah.
Like there's something I'm enamored with, when we were just farting around and you let me just kind of dribble over those chord changes. I am enamored with like minor keys, you know, but like you go from the A minor to the B flat, you know, major 7, right?
Right.
But for me, it's always the
D minor, the D minor inside of it.
Yeah. Because when you get all all those type of, you get that type of. There's something about that, and so when you're making, right, and then
it's beautiful.
Those type of things, and then you come down and that. That's a great question. I don't have a great answer for it, but it's those relationships is what I've been thinking about.
Absolutely. You know how, here's another. You've probably been down this road, but you know how when you've got a slightly distorted sound, anytime you play root 5th octave, it sounds amazing, right?
Yeah.
Distortion loves that, right? Especially cranking it a little more. Like, so anytime you get the way the tubes and the amp grabs onto that.
Right.
Did you ever think of a way to voice a major 7 is to play that A flat root 5th octave over E?
Nice, yeah.
Or yes. If you did it in the key of D, it would be like, yeah. You got this one.
Right.
You just go 2 whole steps below wherever you're doing the root.
Right.
And then you.
Right.
Or in the key of G, it would be this.
So you get 2/3. Right.
Right. Because the way I just love the way or this was the best one of all time. Like you got.
Yeah.
E flat, E major 7, but it's just root 5th octave of the A flat.
Yeah.
Friendly way to play a major 7 chord without having to go like this.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah, because you've got the octave on major 7. Yeah. Well, with the distortion, that makes sense. Because you're still playing fifths.
Exactly. Exactly.
See, that to me, that's like, in that kind of playing requires so much openness too, because you can't, in a big ensemble, you can't.
Yeah, you can't really do
but
that.
That's so 90s grunge.
It is.
I mean, that was where you came of age, right?
Last thing, I'm gonna leave you alone.
You're not going to answer that question.
No, I totally can't. That's exactly what. But I've heard you were the first person that opened my eyes to something that I was severely not understanding when I first started doing sessions, is the importance of mid-range.
Oh.
So I remember you and Justin, when we were first making those records, man, add more mids, man. Add more mids, you know, because I always had a tendency to go toward those big, giant sounds where there was like a lot of rich bass, but, you know, but when you go to try to turn those up in the track, you got to turn them up too loud to hear them.
Or you have to turn something down.
Yeah, you got to turn something down. When did you first start getting into the concept of heavy mid-range on guitar? Like, when did you start understanding that? Like,
it's a two-part question.
Yes.
And I actually have a good answer.
Yes.
I don't know if I told you this when we did the last podcast, but I was hired to play on a record for a really big-time rock producer named Ron Nevison.
Okay.
The singer was Patti Smythe.
Yes.
Remember We Are the Warriors? Yeah.
From Warriors.
Great singer.
Scandal.
And I love her husband's tennis playing too.
Yeah.
And so I was doing half the record, and the other guitar player, his young hack, Eddie Van Halen, was playing the other half.
Wow.
Yeah, right. Nice.
Great.
So, of course, I go to the studio, and and it's like, I just want to hear Eddie Van Halen.
Yeah.
But
You guys made a whole record together?
We weren't together.
Okay,
No, he played.
I see.
But so anyway, so I went to the studio. Now this was part one of the lesson.
Yeah.
And I didn't know I was learning this. But Ron made records a certain way. This was in the 80s, so the drums are big and noisy and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And he mixed Eddie's guitar part like he'd mix the rest of us human beings, right?
Yeah.
In the track. Well, the interesting thing was I knew it was Eddie Van Halen. You could tell it's him. It was the same setup he always used, whatever he was using on that day. But in relationship to everything else, when you listen to Van Halen records, the bass is not louder than the guitar, and the drums are smaller.
Totally.
So the Brown sound lives when it's loud, right? And by itself, it's the Brown sound. But you put bass and drums in there, the Brown sound changes with every decibel you turn up the bass or the drums. Part one, right?
Absolutely.
Then part two of the lesson was later. This was probably in the late 90s. I flew over to work with Mutt Lange on a project, and it was in his studio. And I remember, he would fly all the junk that I had, and, to make all these sounds.
Yeah.
And I was talking to the engineer. I had loved his Def Leppard records.
Sure.
And they were showing me what they used on a majority of it. And
So did 8 million other record purchasers, right?
Right, yeah.
Million it sold.
God,
Man, those records were huge.
but he showed me it was the British equivalent of a Rockman.
Okay.
So I'm sitting there going, wow, really?
This is what we're using? Yeah.
And he said, yeah, because we could never get the sounds, They didn't care about vintage anything. It was like just whatever got it done.
Yeah.
And it was all just mid-range. There's nothing below, there's nothing below 120 or whatever. I mean,
He
it's
knew
just
all about that, didn't he? Mutt did.
well,
Yeah.
and when I was asking him about it, and this all played into it with, is all relationship oriented, right?
Yeah.
When he played, everything had to be behind the kick drum. If you were visualizing, if it's going this way, kick drum hits the bass is hitting right there because you don't want to get on the front of the kick drum because you got to turn the kick drum up then, right? That's what most people do. Just turn the drums up unrecognizably loud. Well, and then the bass sits right here. And then from a frequency standpoint, if you want all that bottom end, you want that glorious bottom end, if the guitar's sitting right here, it has to be lopped off right here. So as he's building this little tower of sound, in the end, I thought those guitars were massive sounding. And when you heard what they really were, it's your experience with Joe Walsh.
Totally.
I mean,
Totally.
But it's hard as a guitar player to play with that mid-range because, man, it makes me clam up.
Oh, man. So he actually would use the Pro Tools to line the instruments up.
No, this is back before Pro Tools. No, he did all by ear.
Damn.
All by ear.
Damn.
But that's the way he explained it. And I understood what he was talking about because the way that he was looking for a different thing. He was looking for a feeling of, and he got it. He took years to do those records too. So, because that stuff, that's not a normal thing.
Right.
He wanted to feel like slow motion.
Totally.
Winds in your hair. I like some of that, but I also like kind of a little of the wildness and not having it so perfect.
Right.
But that was it.
This is the final question. I promise. I've been saying that for what, 10 minutes now? I've been working a lot with Joey Moy, who's also worked a lot with Mutt.
Yeah.
They work side by side.
Yeah.
And Joey told me a technique that Mutt used to use, and I wanted to know if you ever did this with him.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is pretty weird. I think I've got this right. I wish Joey was here to make sure I've got the actual facts right. But they would play a guitar solo on the record, and then like it may not be the final solo. It was just a mock-up.
Yeah.
And then he would shift it over to the left, the whole solo of a 16th note, and shift it over to the right,
And find out.
a 16th note, and listen to it all those different ways to see if it's sparked any better ideas. And even though it was sounded totally discordant because it wasn't intentionally played like that, Joey said that Mutt could listen to this noise and he would hear a good idea in there.
Yeah.
And be able to implement it into the final solo. Did you ever do that with him?
Not like that.
Okay.
But we would do something akin to that before Pro Tools, right? Mm-hmm. He did everything on a digital tape machine, so it was that there was no visual to any of this stuff. But yeah, you'd play a lick. Let's just pick the A minor, so you're ending a solo. And he would say, no, don't end it on that tonic, Like what he'd probably ended up on.
On a 4?
Yeah, and I'm like going, there's no resolution.
Yeah.
But he would, and then he would like sometimes this wouldn't necessarily be on a solo, but then he'd say like you got that D chord and you're plugging the A minor, and all of a sudden you're ending on that D, and then maybe over top of that, it was just like he would put random notes, stuff that was tension.
Yeah.
And it was the same thing. And it wasn't like he was studying it from that standpoint. But and I always heard the solos that he would have guys in bands do.
Yeah.
Because I was always thinking I wanted some flash and stuff. But he was so not into that.
Right.
It was all harmonic tension. And we would do that with chords, glassy parts. And he would do that. He was always on the hunt for something that would play over a bar and be outside of the chord. And there were no rules. It's like he had no fear factor. It's like, yeah, try it. It sucks. Do another one. But that was the same thing.
The only time I ever worked with Mutt was because of you. You suggested to him that I come over there and do a session, and that was really one of my highlights of my whole career was working with him for 2 days. And thank you for that. You sent me over there on a plane, first class ticket. It was amazing.
Nice, yeah,
Switzerland, but it was great, man. I mean, what a sweet guy. Oh my God.
But you know what I'm saying? He is confidence and ego. It's the confidence, but he's not afraid. It's it's like
genius shit.
It's what we all want to be.
Totally, man. I've used up enough of your day.
Oh man,
Thank
are you kidding? I'm sitting there with the major 7 chord. I'm sitting there thinking, okay. I mean, I'm not going to sound like you, but it's like, but in that part of this whole thing of collaboration that you don't.
It totally is. Great session, boys. Great session.
Just no.
Yeah. Give me a couple of those. Yeah, and then the third one. I'll give you a quick D major. And then back to the top.